This week, we were chatting about Bill and Melinda Gates and the divorce, the separation between them, and it really got us wondering, what kind of struggles people are dealing with in their relationships at home with their significant others. So this morning, to break this down, of course, we are chatting with Melissa Estevillo, licensed psychologist at Biltmore Counseling. Good morning, Melissa. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. Yes.
And I think this is such an important topic. I actually went on to Facebook yesterday, and this was one of those conversation starters I think that a lot of people shared about. And so there are a couple of things we can talk about this morning, of course. And one of the big things was communication and how important that is to a relationship.
Yes, communication is so important, and so many people through the pandemic have been struggling to communicate. They haven't had some of the outlets that have been so helpful for them, and they are really having a hard time being able to connect with each other, even though they have so much more time with each other.
Isn't that so true? Okay, so in terms of overcoming some of this distress, what are some tips that you can give us this morning?
Yeah. So one of the things that I see so often when couples come in and they start talking is that they talk so quickly. They so quickly go into content and their facts and the things that they want to feel are important. And if they're able to slow down, that is such a huge thing because you're better able to listen, to understand, which is another important thing that so often we're trying to refute the other person's point. But when we're able to listen for empathy, that really helps us be able to bond and connect. Another important thing is to communicate
I think
emotion.
empathy is one of those words I think that you brought up, and I wanted to kind of point that out, and thank you so much for mentioning that, because empathy is one thing I think that we're missing society-wide in understanding one another on the basic human level.
Yeah, I definitely have seen a change in empathy where people will say, I am who I am, and this is my perspective. And that doesn't bond us in relationships. It is so important for us to know who we are and have our values, and at the same time, be able to step out of our own perspective and try to see it through the other person's lens. There's more than one fact, there's more than one point of view. And so empathy is such a key for relationships to be long-standing and healthy. So yes, I absolutely agree with you there.
There are times where you feel like it's so difficult to go through. And what are 3 tips that you have when you say, you know what, it's time to call it quits? I don't know if we can survive this relationship.
Yeah, and I think a really key important thing is that no good couples counselor will ever tell a couple it's time to quit. It's always up to them to decide.
Good.
But a few things that I think are important to keep in mind is that when communication has become highly escalated, where it's either incredibly critical or incredibly emotionally detached, that can be a really painful thing if that's longstanding and not fixed. Another thing is when people feel like there's not any sense of warmth towards each other, like they just feel a sense of contempt and disgust, that really can, sour the relationship. And if people aren't able to end well, they really aren't able to honor the good years that they had together, which is just so painful to see. And then most importantly, I think there's a lot of people that have lost hope, but they still desire to fall back in love. They still wish that something could work. But when they've come to a place where like, I don't even want to figure this out. If he or she becomes everything that I had always wanted them to be, I'm still done. Then that's good to know. Like, it's not really going to be something that can be overcome. If we've lost that desire, there's really not a lot of hope for success in the future.
Yeah, one of the things, as we wrap it up, we only have about 10 seconds left here, Melissa, but one of the things that I had a bunch of people chime on Facebook and say, I've been married 48 years, 30 years, 20 years, and all of these people said a weekly date night away from children helped them stay connected on the daily every single week.
Yes, that's the way we fell in love. And so if we cut out the things that led to our love, it's hard to keep it. So it is so important. I agree.
Melissa Estevillo, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
Yes, you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, some good advice
stuff
there, right?
Thank you.
It's
and
keep that
thank you
date
to everyone
night.
who chimed in on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important.
You and Big Gary are good at that.
There's a great conversation to be had.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do a couple times if we can. Let's just walk through the neighborhood, or we lock ourselves out of the house. Bye, kids. Whatever happens in the home, we're not responsible.
You're old enough. You're fine. You know how to call 911. All right. Can you believe we're talking